Hello YouTube, Tim here. I wanted to talk to you about Deflex. I'm not in my own home today since we're showing and getting things ready and hopefully be moving out soon. So I'm in a different place with pad of paper. I don't have my tripod or access to pretty much anything. So this is all hand shot. Forgive me, forgive me. Okay, let's talk about Deflex. Like I said, I mentioned a few days ago the crow bow. And one of the reasons that it stacks so heavily is because it's Deflex. Now, what are we talking about? If you're not too familiar with bows, let's draw a handle. Okay, then two limbs. And now, the limbs can terminate straight. That's a straight bow. And of course, then you bend them, and then bent, a straight bow looks like this when it's strung. Okay? Now, let's draw a second bow. This is going to be a recurve bow. See how the ends curve away? That's recurve. Now when it's strung, it'll look something like this. And this is very, very approximate, but you get the idea. Thirdly, you can have a Deflex bow. Now there are other variants. If you're interested, go check out the PVC archery and traditional archery quick reference guide. I can give you a link to that in a little bit, or yeah, anyway, we'll talk about that. I'll put the link in the show notes. So right here, a Deflex bow, as you'd imagine, is like that. And then when it's strung, very much the same, just a little bit further pulled back. Okay, so there you go, three kinds of bows. A straight bow, a recurve, and this is actually a decurve bow, not a deflex, I'm sorry. A deflex is a little different. Well, let's talk about that too, why don't we? Okay. We already showed straight bow, so now I'm just going to go to a reflex bow and a deflex bow. A reflex bow would be like this. The limbs could end straight, but for the most part, a reflex is usually almost always a recurve. And typically it will be something like this. Now you're talking almost a Cupid style bow when it's strung. Forgive my horrible drawing. I'm not even looking at the page. I'm looking at the camera and the screen, and I'm drawing it from there. So that would be a reflex with recurve. This is a deflex bow. And I'll still give it recurve. This is like an Egyptian style bow. Okay. And actually, you could just pretty much string that up. But, just pull it further back. You get the idea. This is a deflex bow. Okay. Straight bow. Recurve bow that talks about the tips. Decurve, talking about the tips. Reflex, talking about the angle of the limb. Deflex, talking about the angle of the limb. Great. Now that we're on the same page, let's change the page. Why, somebody asked when I was talking about the crow bow, would somebody want to have decurve or deflex? Okay, let's draw a decurved bow, just like we did before. And then let's draw it in its strung position, which will be just a tiny bit more. Okay, so the point is, between the strung and unstrung positions, you're moving the limbs less when you bend the tip back. If I was bending the tip forward to get from here to there, the limbs have to bend more. Not just the tip moving more, but the whole limb is more stressed. When you bend the tip back, it's closer to already being at brace height. The tips are closer to being where they need to be when it's braced. So you're storing less energy. And As a consequence, you're also stressing limbs less. Why is that a good thing? If you have bad material, it can be really good. Let's say you have a piece of really, really marginal wood that you don't think is going to make a good bow. If you decurve it and deflex it, all of a sudden, the bow has to take less stress to be at brace height. Because you could decurve it enough so that you could string it up with no stress whatsoever. Brace height could be the same as unbraced. The unbraced bow, the profile could be the same, right? I could make a bow like this, and I could just slip a string right on. No difference. What that means is the force draw curve is going to be different. Let's say with a normal bow, you start off at something like this. This bow, you're just starting off even lower, and you're staying lower. So again, storing less energy. This would be distance drawn, and this axis would be the amount of energy stored. You're storing less energy, but you're also stressing the limbs less. And that's critical for, like I said, poor materials. If you simply need to drop the draw weight. With PVC, the material is pretty darn consistent. The concern is more likely going to be controlling draw weight, which is why I deflex a lot of limbs. And also to limit strain on the material. It's different though. It's not. With wood, you have to worry about the wood shattering and being overstrained. With PVC, you have to worry about, here's a PVC pipe section, here's the wall, okay? Here's the hollow. Since it's hollow and there's nothing in between, what's there? Just air. If you bend it, the pipe can buckle. So let's say it can start to collapse like that. It's not good. So your limb will hinge. There's nothing inside to prevent that. Some people have tried putting foam in there and other things and have had okay results. Some people have put fiberglass on the outside to reinforce the outside, prevent it from caving in, had fairly good results. Nevertheless, in general, with normal unreinforced PVC, you can only stress it so far. You can only force it to bend in so small a radius. So, if I could take a straight PVC pipe, and let's say I bend it, I could force it to bend into maybe, I don't know, 180 degrees of a circle. Let's just suppose that I could do that. If I bent it evenly. Now again, that's not what happens, but let's just say. That means right here, you're bending it so much, and if you bent it even a tiny bit farther, and again, we don't know exactly how far, it'll depend on the size of the pipe, the length of the pipe, etc. But let's just suppose that with this pipe, you can draw it 180 degrees, then 1 degree farther, and all of a sudden, you're straining it too much, and your pipe might collapse, probably here right at the center, where the forces are greatest. That's a problem, and that's why you deflex it. Think of it this way. If you heated the pipe and you bent it into this half circle when it's floppy, there's no inherent stress. The bow will remain in that position. You could put a string on it and you could draw it. From that point, you could draw it to a full draw probably. It would be a crappy bow, but the bow wouldn't collapse because there's no strain. If you did the straight bow, it'll collapse or break or something will happen. So it's a different sort of structural problem rather than a material problem with PVC. But nevertheless, the reason that I take my bows, let's show a Turkish style one. I put Deflex in the mid limb, okay? One, because that way once it's strung, it looks proper because most of the bending is supposed to happen in the mid limb, the saw, sort of near the handle. And the outer limb here, the Sia, which is the Kasan, and the Bash. Those areas don't bend almost at all. So you got to make this area do all the work. And in a PVC bow, the handle, if you're not reinforcing the handle, it's going to do a disproportionate amount of work, so it's going to arc evenly throughout instead of being more or less straight through the middle handle section. It's okay, but to get the right look, I deflex it. That does rob me of some performance because we're lowering the draw weight. It also prevents the bow from collapsing and gives me a little bit of a safety margin so I can make my bow shorter. My normal bows are 48 inches long, my U3 curves. My normal Turkish bows are about 42 inches knock to knock. So you see how much shorter that is, and I'm still drawing them to 28 inches. The Deflex helps keep the weight manageable and also helps to distribute the stress more evenly throughout the limb. There you go. I mean, this is a pretty basic overview. I hope this was interesting. If you guys have any more questions, I love to help. I love to talk about stuff and see if I can answer anything. Thanks so much for asking the question. I forget who it was exactly on the forum, but thanks. And if you have more questions, more things you'd like to talk about, let me know. Hopefully by tomorrow I'll be back in my own home and I'll be able to do some cool stuff. Thanks for watching, YouTube.